It's time now for business, and for that I'm joined in the studio by Stephen Carroll. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Haxie.
As Joe Biden meets the heads of EU institutions today, there are hopes of a breakthrough in one transatlantic spat that's lasted some 17 years.
It's a trade dispute over subsidies to the plane builders Boeing and Airbus. It dates back to 2004 when the US pulled out of an agreement that had existed over how much help was being allowed given to those companies. Then Washington complained to the World Trade Organization over what it felt were the unfair advantages that Airbus was getting from the EU. And so that was for both from the EU, but also the main bases of the UK, France, Germany and Spain. The EU responded with a complaint in turn about subsidies for Boeing. Investigations were carried out. There were appeals and counter-appeals, and there were more complaints along the way, which spun out over until 2019, when finally the WTO told the United States that it could impose tariffs on the European Union over this. The following year, Brussels got the same right to do the same thing on imports from America. In March of this year, both sides agreed they would suspend the tariffs for 4 months pending negotiations, and there are various reports today, as we've been hearing, suggesting both sides are on the cusp of a breakthrough on this, finally.
So what exactly are the stakes here, Stephen?
When it comes to tariffs, the numbers involved are pretty big. The United States was imposing tariffs on $7.5 billion worth of EU imports until they were suspended, while Brussels had tariffs on $4 billion worth of American imports. The goods involved aircraft parts, of course, but also European wine, cheeses, spirits, that sort of thing. Of all the ongoing transatlantic trade issues, this should be one of the easiest to resolve. Both sides were in the wrong. They clearly have been working to try to resolve this for quite a while. A deal here would be hugely symbolic because it would kind of signify wrapping up such a long trade dispute between both sides. It's outlasted 3 US presidents and 6 EU trade commissioners. So that gives you an idea of how long this has been going on. Negotiators working until late last night, trying to come to an agreement. They have to work out, though, what kind of subsidies they want to allow for both Washington and Brussels to give to those 2 aerospace giants, which, of course, have also been hurt by the pandemic too. Now, they have until July 11th to come to a deal. That's when the current suspension of tariffs comes to an end, although word on the street is there could be one before that.
Meanwhile, the UK and Australia have agreed a new trade deal.
It's all going on with trade today. Australia's Trade Minister making this announcement after a meeting between Prime Ministers Scott Morrison and Boris Johnson. Details of the deal will be made public later, but official estimates claim the agreement could be worth the equivalent of around 580 million euros to the UK economy over the long term. Although some Australian experts say the deal is mostly symbolic, as that country's economy is more focused on trading with Asia.
Well, turning next to India, where consumer prices are rising.
Inflation jumped to 6.3% in May in India as prices rose across the board. It's the fastest pace of price increases in 6 months. Food price inflation rose from 2% in April to 5% in May, while increases in the price of fuel jumped to a rate of almost 12%. This news coming as the pandemic has squeezed India's middle class, pushing many into poverty. Marius Safas reports.
Before the arrival of COVID-19 in India, business was thriving for Bijender and Kanika Gautam, with their 100-member gym making enough revenue for them to rent their 2-storey space and pay 5 trainers. As New Delhi prepares to start easing restrictions, the couple are just trying their best to make do, offering online training. But they're struggling to pay rent and their children's school fees.
Earlier, we didn't have to think twice about spending when we went to the market with our children or went out to eat on a Saturday night. We didn't have to think too much about that. Now the situation is such that I have to wonder how I'll afford to buy basics like protein supplements. The gym needs renovation every 6 months.
This has set us back by at least 2 years, and it will take us another 2 years to get our business back.
This landlord owns 2 shops in New Delhi. One tenant has closed down, though, and the other can't afford to pay his rent.
The government gave us these shops to earn a living. I had come here to collect the rent from my tenant today, but he's crying because he's making no sales now.
A report published in March by American think tank the Pew Research Center estimates that 32 million Indians have been pushed out of the middle class by the pandemic, with the middle class defined as people earning between $10 to $20 a day. The number of Indians in poverty, earning $2 or less, is estimated to have increased by 75 million.
Let's take a quick look at what's happening on the markets for you next. A mixed picture today on Asian shares. The Nikkei in Tokyo up by 1%, but falls in Shanghai and Hong Kong over concerns about US-China relations. We're keeping an eye too on the price of oil, which reached its highest level in 2 years on Monday. Brent and WTI holding on to much of those gains today. A barrel of Brent just over $73.
And finally from you, Stephen, major upheaval at an American company that was building electric trucks.
The chief executive and financial chief at Lordstown Motors have resigned after the company's board found that it had published inaccurate information about its new electric truck. This was after claims were made by a short seller back in March. Lordstown had planned to start building its endurance truck in September. That's now been pushed back after the company revealed it doesn't have enough cash to start full commercial production. Shares in Lordstown plunging by almost 19% on this news on Wall Street.
Stephen Carroll with a look through the day's top business stories. Thank you very much.